In the audience, Jake, 17, slouched in his seat, his expensive sneakers propped on the chair in front of him. His friends snickered beside him, their whispers sharp with malice. Jake came from money, the kind that made him think he owned this town. His father's bitter rants about outsiders had shaped him, twisting his heart into something cold. Amara's talent grated on him. She was everything he wasn't, driven, gifted, and unapologetically herself. "Let's have some fun tonight," he muttered to his crew, his smirk hiding the unease he felt watching Amara's name light up the program. As Amara stepped onto the stage, the spotlight caught the sheen of her violin, and the crowd hushed. She lifted her bow, her eyes closing, and began to play. The notes soared, a haunting melody that wove her pain and hope into every chord. The audience leaned forward, some wiping tears, others holding their breath. Lisa gripped her program, her heart swelling. Amara's music was magic, a story of resilience that silenced the room, almost. In the back, Jake rolled his eyes, whispering, "She thinks she's special." His friend nudged him, daring him to do something about it. Jake's pulse quickened, a mix of arrogance and adrenaline pushing him to his feet. Backstage, Jake slipped past a distracted usher, his heart pounding with a twisted thrill. He didn't think about consequences, only the laughter he'd get from his friends. As Amara's performance hit its crescendo, her bow dancing faster, Jake stepped onto the stage. In one swift, cruel motion, he grabbed the hem of her skirt and yanked it up, exposing her to the crowd. The music stopped dead. A collective gasp ripped through the auditorium. Amara's eyes snapped open, her face burning with shock and shame. Her bow clattered to the floor, and for a moment, she stood frozen, the weight of every stare crushing her. Laughter erupted from Jake's friends, but it was drowned out by murmurs of disgust from others. Lisa shot to her feet, her hands trembling, unable to move. Jake stood there, expecting cheers, but the air turned heavy. His smirk faltered as he caught the eyes of the crowd, parents glaring, kids whispering, and then, a shadow loomed. Mr. Thompson, the town's revered music teacher, stepped forward, his face a storm of fury. At 6 feet 4 inches, with a voice that could command a room, he was a force. "You think this is funny?" he thundered, his words cutting through Jake like a blade. The auditorium fell silent. Jake's bravado crumbled, his mouth went dry, his legs rooted to the spot. He'd never seen Mr. Thompson like this, a man who'd once taught him piano before Jake quit in a huff. "You've disgraced yourself," Mr. Thompson said, his voice low but lethal. "Get off this stage." Amara, tears streaming down her cheeks, grabbed her violin and fled backstage, her skirt clutched tightly. The audience's whispers followed her, a mix of pity and outrage. Jake, now alone, felt the weight of every eye on him. His friends slunk low in their seats, abandoning him. Event organizers escorted him out, their faces stern, as murmurs of "disgusting" and "what's wrong with him" trailed behind. Outside, the cool night air hit Jake like a slap, but it was Mr. Thompson's words that echoed in his head. For the first time, he felt something unfamiliar, fear, not of punishment, but of what he'd just done. Backstage, Amara collapsed into a chair, her sobs muffled as she hugged her violin. Lisa rushed to her, wrapping her in a fierce embrace. "You are enough," Lisa whispered, her voice shaking. "Don't let him take that from you." Amara nodded, but her heart ached. She'd dreamed of this night, of proving she could rise above the whispers about her skin, her family, her place in this town. Now, all she could see was the crowd's faces, the laughter, the humiliation. "I can't go back out there," she choked out. Lisa held her tighter, sharing a story of her own, a time she'd faced hate at Amara's age and kept going. "You're stronger than they know," she said, but Amara wasn't sure she believed it. At Jake's house, the mood was different. His father, lounging in a leather armchair, scoffed when Jake recounted the incident. "Just a prank, son. They'll get over it," he said, sipping his whiskey. Jake forced a laugh, but it felt hollow. His younger sister, Ellie, 14 and wide-eyed, overheard from the hallway. "You're awful," she hissed, her voice trembling. Amara didn't deserve that. Jake shrugged, but her words stung, a crack in his armor. He retreated to his room, the image of Amara's tear-streaked face flashing in his mind. Why did he care? He'd done worse pranks before, hadn't he? But sleep didn't come easy that night. The next morning, the town was abuzz. Posts on social media, fictional for this story, called out Jake's cruelty, with hashtags like #JusticeForAmara trending locally. Kids at school whispered about the skirt incident, and Jake's friends dodged him in the halls. Amara, meanwhile, stayed home, her violin untouched. Lisa tried to coax her to practice, but Amara shook her head. What's the point? They'll always see me as less. Lisa's heart broke, but she didn't push. Instead, she called Mr. Thompson, who'd been Amara's mentor since she was 10. He arrived that afternoon, his presence calming but firm. You're not done, Amara, he said, sitting across from her. That stage is yours, not his. Mr. Thompson shared a story of his own, about a time he'd been mocked as a young black musician in a mostly white conservatory. I played louder, he said, his eyes steady. You can too. He told her about an encore recital planned in a week, a chance to perform again, to reclaim her moment. Amara's stomach churned at the thought. What if they laugh again, she whispered. Mr. Thompson leaned forward. Then you make them listen. His words sparked something in her, a flicker of defiance, but fear still lingered. Across town, Jake faced his own reckoning. Ellie refused to speak to him at breakfast, her silence louder than any lecture. His mother, usually quiet, looked at him with disappointment. You're better than this, Jake, she said softly, but he brushed it off. At school, he was called to the principal's office, where he learned he'd been suspended for a week and assigned community service. You've got a lot to answer for, the principal said. Jake nodded, but inside, he was reeling. He'd always gotten away with things, his dad's money made sure of that. But now, the town saw him differently, and so did he. That night, Ellie slipped into Jake's room, her face serious. I was at the recital, she said. I saw what you did to Amara. She's amazing, and you ruined her night. Why? Jake snapped back, it was just a joke. But Ellie didn't back down. You're not Dad, she said. You don't have to be like him. Her words hit harder than Mr. Thompson's glare. Jake stared at his ceiling that night, Amara's frozen expression haunting him. For the first time, he wondered if he'd crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Amara, meanwhile, picked up her violin for the first time since the recital. Her fingers shook as she played a single note, then stopped. The memory of the stage, the laughter, was too raw. But Mr. Thompson's words echoed, make them listen. She closed her eyes and tried again, the notes shaky but growing stronger. Lisa watched from the doorway, tears in her eyes. Amara wasn't ready to decide about the encore recital, but she wasn't giving up either. Somewhere deep inside, she knew her music was bigger than the hate she'd faced. As the week loomed, the town prepared for the encore recital, a chance for Amara to shine again. Whispers spread that Jake might show up, maybe to cause more trouble. Amara practiced in secret, her resolve hardening. Jake, meanwhile, felt the weight of his actions growing heavier. Ellie's words, Mr. Thompson's glare, and the town's judgment pressed on him. He didn't know how to fix it, but something was shifting inside him, a spark of guilt he couldn't ignore. The town was alive with chatter after the recital incident. Social media buzzed with support for Amara, posts praising her talent and calling out Jake's cruelty. Outside her modest home, neighbors left flowers and notes, one reading, "Your music is our pride." Amara, still shaken, read them with her mother, Lisa, her heart torn between gratitude and fear. At school, Jake felt the sting of isolation. His friends, once his cheering squad, avoided him, whispering behind his back. Suspended for a week, he faced community service, a punishment he scoffed at but couldn't dodge. The town's judgment was clear, Jake had gone too far. Amara sat in her room, her violin untouched since her tentative practice. The thought of the encore recital made her stomach knot. What if it happens again, she asked Lisa, her voice small. Lisa knelt beside her, eyes fierce. You're not just playing for them, Amara. You're playing for you. That afternoon, Mr. Thompson, her mentor, organized a private practice with a few trusted friends. Amara hesitated, her bow trembling, but as she played, the notes flowed, raw and powerful. Her friends clapped, one saying, "That was you, Amara, unstoppable." For the first time in days, she smiled, a spark of courage igniting. Across town, Jake's world was unraveling. At home, his father dismissed the backlash, saying, "People are too sensitive." But Ellie, his 14-year-old sister, wasn't letting it go. At dinner, she glared at him. "You hurt her, Jake. You made her feel small." Jake snapped. It was a prank, but her words cut deep. Later, his mother, usually silent, pulled him aside. "I ignored hate once," she said, her voice heavy. "It cost me friends, respect. Don't make my mistakes." Jake brushed it off, but her words lingered, joining Ellie's and the town's glares in his restless mind. Jake's community service started at the community center, where Mr. Thompson oversaw a music program for kids. Jake expected to sweep floors, but Mr. Thompson had other plans. "You're here to learn," he said, assigning Jake to help with setup. There, Jake met Marcus, a black violinist who'd performed professionally despite facing racism early on. Marcus shared his story. A crowd once booed him off stage, but he returned the next night, playing louder. "Hate only wins if you let it," he said. Jake listened, his usual smirk gone. For the first time, he saw the pain his actions caused, not just to Amara, but to anyone who'd felt like an outsider. That night, Jake sat alone, a notebook in hand. He wrote a letter to Amara, the words clumsy but honest. "I'm sorry for what I did. It was wrong, and I hate that I hurt you." He didn't know if he'd ever give it to her, fear of her rejection stopped him, but writing it made his guilt real. Ellie caught him, her eyes softening. "That's a start," she said, "but you've got to mean it." Jake nodded, unsure how to prove it. His father's voice echoed in his head, urging him to double down, but Marcus's story and Ellie's faith pushed back harder. Amara, meanwhile, found her resolve. She wrote a new piece for the encore recital, pouring her pain into every note. Practicing alone, she imagined the stage, the crowd, the moment Jake stole. This time, she'd take it back. Lisa watched her play, tears falling. "That's my girl," she whispered. Mr. Thompson stopped by, offering tips, but mostly pride. "You're not just a violinist," he said. "You're a fighter." Amara decided to perform, not for the scholarship, but to prove she could stand tall. The thought of Jake still stung, but her music was her power, and she wouldn't let him take it. The night of the encore recital arrived, the auditorium packed with supporters. Amara's hands shook as she waited backstage, her violin a familiar weight. Lisa squeezed her hand. "You've got this." In the audience, Jake sat alone, defying his father's orders to stay home. He'd slipped out, drawn by a need he couldn't name. As Amara stepped into the spotlight, the crowd cheered, their warmth lifting her. She raised her bow, and her new piece filled the room, a melody of pain, strength, and hope. The notes soared, fierce and unbroken, and the audience rose to their feet, clapping before she'd even finished. Lisa sobbed, pride overwhelming her. Jake watched, his chest tight. Amara's music wasn't just beautiful, it was alive, a force that made his actions feel smaller, uglier. He saw her strength, her defiance, and it hit him. She was everything he'd mocked, everything he wasn't. As the applause roared, he slipped backstage, his letter crumpled in his pocket. Amara was packing her violin when he approached, his voice shaking. "Amara, I'm sorry." He held out the letter, his eyes down. She froze, her guard up, but took it. "Words aren't enough," she said, her voice steady. "Show you've changed." Jake nodded, no excuses left. She walked away, head high, leaving him with her words. Days later, Amara learned she'd won the scholarship, not just for her talent but for her courage. The town celebrated her, her performance now a local legend. Jake, meanwhile, kept showing up to community service, helping kids tune their instruments, listening to their stories. Mr. Thompson watched him closely, noting a quiet change. One day, Jake saw Amara at the center, teaching a young girl violin. Their eyes met, and she gave a small nod, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. "Keep proving it," she said, echoing her earlier challenge. Jake vowed he would. Amara's music grew bolder, her next performance at a regional competition drawing scouts and applause. She played for herself, her grandmother's skirt a reminder of her roots. Jake was there, in the back, no longer the boy who'd mocked her. He was trying, step by step, to be better.